There's a certain category of disaster that becomes too perfect to ignore. Not just a failure, but a failure so complete, so theatrical, so deeply revealing about human psychology that it stops being news and starts to become mythology. And the fact that the guy behind it literally tried to do it again twice is either the funniest thing to happen in modern pop culture history or the most damning indictment of how the internet actually works. Maybe both. Let's go back to 2017. Billy McFarland is a 25-year-old with a track record of minor hustle ventures and an almost supernatural ability to convince people he was bigger than he was. He partners with Ja Rule, yes, that Ja Rule, and together they dream up Fyre Festival, a luxury music festival set on a private island in the Bahamas that was supposedly once owned by Pablo Escobar. That last part was completely fabricated, by the way. The island was just a normal island they rented, but that's the whole story in a miniature right there. Fabricate the mythology, get people to buy into it before reality can catch up. Before the event happened, the marketing was genuinely brilliant, and I mean that with all the horror that sentence implies. They hired a roster of supermodels, Bella Hadid, Kendall Jenner, Emily Ratajkowski, to post cryptic orange tiles on Instagram. No text, no explanation, just a color. This was before influencer marketing had become the transparent machine it was today, so it did hit a little bit differently. People were absolutely obsessed. Then the actual promotional video dropped. Yachts, bikinis, turquoise water, fire. The whole pitch was that this wasn't just a festival. It was a cultural event for a certain kind of person, the kind of person who belongs on an island. The subtext was obvious. Buy a ticket, become that person. Tickets range from roughly $500 for a day pass all the way up to $250,000 for a full VIP package. People paid it, thousands of them, and why wouldn't they? Every signal in the environment said this was legitimate. Famous people were endorsing it, the production value of the ads were insane, there was an entire app. There was merchandise, it looked real because every surface layer of it was real. The lies weren't in what you could see, they were in everything underneath. What was actually underneath? Nothing. Essentially nothing. The team had rented out a patch of land on Great Exuma in the Bahamas, and it was completely undeveloped. The luxury villas they advertised were disaster relief tents left over from a hurricane. The gourmet meals they were promised, infamously, 2 slices of white bread, some sad cheese, and a side salad in a styrofoam container. A photo of that meal went viral on the day of arrival and became the image that ended the festival before it even began. The musical acts, including Blink-182, pulled out almost immediately once they saw what was happening on the ground. Attendees who had spent thousands of dollars to just get there landed to find a construction site. No functioning infrastructure or real accommodations. There wasn't a festival. What happened next was a genuine humanitarian crisis and also somehow a live content event. People were stranded on an island with no plan for how to get home. Baggages were thrown on an airstrip in the rain. There were accounts of people sleeping in their luggage. Local Bahamian workers who had been hired to staff the event went unpaid. One woman, Marilyn Roll, testified that she spent $50,000 of her own savings trying to feed the workers. She ended up having to crowdfund to recover. That detail matters. Underneath all the influencer glamour and millennials schadenfreude, real people with real lives did get hurt. Billy McFarland was arrested. In 2018, he pled guilty to 2 counts of wire fraud and was sentenced to 6 years in federal prison. He also owed somewhere around $26 million in restitution, so that was that. Except then the documentary series came out on Netflix. They made Fyre, the greatest party that never happened. Hulu made Fyre Fraud. Both dropped within days of each other in January 2019, and the whole thing blew up again. A new generation of people discovered the story. It got memed into infinity, and Fyre Festival became shorthand for a very specific kind of cultural phenomenon, the thing that was always fake, that everyone bought into, that the internet couldn't look away from. Here's the thing about Fyre Festival that I think people don't engage with enough. It wasn't just a scam. Lots of things are scams. What made Fyre Festival culturally significant is what it revealed about the relationship between aspiration and gullibility. These weren't naive people. A lot of the ticket buyers were educated, savvy, plugged-in individuals who understood social media better than most, and they still got taken for a ride. Because the product being sold wasn't a festival, it was identity. It was belonging to a world that looked a certain way, and that desire is so powerful that it overrides due diligence. There were no confirmed artists when people bought tickets. There was no confirmed venue. There was barely a confirmed date. None of that mattered because the vibe was immaculate. That's the real lesson, not that Billy McFarland was a con man. Con men exist, they always have. Where do you think the term snake oil salesman comes from? The lesson is that aesthetic coherence can substitute for actual evidence when the thing being sold is a version of yourself that you want to believe in. Now, McFarland got out of prison early in March 2022, and this is where it gets unhinged again. In August 2023, he announced Fyre Festival 2, posted a video on TikTok, put tickets on sale ranging from $800 to $8,000 before he announced a date, location, or a lineup. And people still bought them. Not many, but some. Then that version was quietly canceled. Cut to 2024, where he announced another version late in that year, canceled. Then in September 2024, he went on the Today Show, said the festival was definitely happening, said he had a private island off the coast of Mexico, said a production company was handling everything soup to nuts. He did not name the island, and in February 2025, tickets went back on sale. This time, the prices ran from $1,400 up to, and I need you to hear this, $1.1 million. There was a package called Prometheus, God of Fire, 8 spots, a yacht, a 24/7 private driver, $1.1 million for a festival by Billy McFarland. The location was announced as Isle Mujeres, a small island off the coast of Cancun. The tourist board of Isle Mujeres promptly released a statement saying they had no idea what anyone was talking about. McFarland then pivoted and said the festival was moving to Playa del Carmen. The government of Playa del Carmen then also released a statement saying there were no records, no plans, and no permits for any event called Fyre Festival 2. McFarland called it misinformation. Then on April 16, 2025, ticket holders received an email. The event had been postponed. No new date, no new location, just postponed. Refunds issued. Thanks for your continued support of the Fyre Vision. A week after that, McFarland announced he was putting the Fyre brand up for sale. His statement said, quote, he couldn't risk a repeat. Let that land, he could not risk a repeat. The guy who did Fyre Festival then tried to do it again, then tried again, then tried again, with a $1 million+ package, could not risk a repeat. Of what exactly? He already did the repeat. What's genuinely fascinating to me about all of this is who bought tickets. Not many people, the numbers were reportedly in the low hundreds, but they existed among us day to day. After 2 documentaries, the federal fraud conviction, years of canceled follow-up attempts, after the Isle Mujeres government said no, Playa del Carmen government said no, all of that, there were still people who paid $1,400 minimum to attend a festival organized by a convicted fraudster with 0 confirmed artists, 0 confirmed venues, and 0 track record of delivering what he promised. And I don't think those people are necessarily stupid. I think they understood exactly what they were doing. Some of them were probably buying it for the story. Some were genuinely hoping to be a part of the comeback narrative, some just gamblers, but the underlying engine is the same one that powered the original. The product isn't the festival. The product is the feeling of being someone who was there. In 2017, that feeling was aspirational, glamorous. In 2025, the feeling was knowing irony. Either way, Billy McFarland was selling a self-concept and some people were still buying. The firebrand is now for sale. If you want to buy it, presumably Billy McFarland will take your call. What you'd be purchasing is one of the most recognizable disaster brands in modern history. A name that has become synonymous with spectacular failure dressed up as luxury. In a weird way, that's not nothing. In the attention economy, infamy is currency. The original Fyre Festival was a story about how far aspiration can carry a lie. Fyre Festival 2 is a story about what happens when that lie has already been exposed and people choose it anyway. That second story might actually be darker, and I think it says something about where we are right now. A moment where the simulation of legitimacy doesn't even need to be convincing. It just needs to exist.